Guys, well, if you remember from last week's video, I was a little under the weather, and I'll be honest with you, I still am, but I'm getting around a little better, but just can't get it, just can't kick it, can't get rid of it, but that's life. In the meantime, we still got work to do. I have some work to do on my C3500HD project, and I'm gonna take you along with me. So let's go outside, and then we'll come back in here, and I'll show you what we got working on, and we'll get after it. So here's what we're working with. Brought a machine home. Was able to pick the whole frame up from the side and move it over so it's in line with the overhead door now. I've got my old front frame section so I can take exact measurements off the motor mounts, the old ones, and I got to get that steering gearbox pulled off of there and installed on the new frame. But overall, we're ready to drop this axle out of here and put new springs and axle in. So let's see what we got going on inside. And here's what we got going on inside. We got an axle. We got to get shocks off of it. Actually, we may not get shocks. I don't know. I might break them free just so that part's done. But we got to get these front spring hangers off and the bolts out of the bushings. Hopefully that's going to be a chore, and we got to get sway bar end links off. We'll do with all that on the ground, so it's relatively easy to do. And yeah, and we got a rear axle that we got some work to do. That's kind of last on the list for this weekend. If I get to it, great. If not, we'll save that. Yeah, so we're going to tackle that. That way we can get an axle changed out. I'm actually going to drop the old axle out of the frame first, and then do all my motor mount work while it's out, because it's going to be a lot easier to get in and weld, cut, and grind and all that. And then we'll hopefully, it's as simple as bolting this one in, and yeah, we're in good shape. So what I'm going to start with first is I'm going to get out the torches, and I'm going to get out the walkie gun. As you can see, my little my cordless storage area up there is pretty bare. That's because during the landscaping season, when I'm out working, I keep most anyway of my cordless stuff in the truck with me, so I can do work out of it. And this pack out box really actually is like perfect. So anyway, got that back in the barn here. We'll get out the 3/4 gun, and we'll get some heat put to these and see if we can't melt them out of the bushings and get this thing prepped to go back in. All right, well, as always, my plans are thwarted by rust. So as you can see, I was able to get my front shackles actually came off relatively easily. The rears were a little more work, and unfortunately the center bushings came out of the rubbers, so that's a problem. Also, the pin, when I went to take the bolt off for the shock on this side, it sheared the pin, so that's a problem. And to top it all off, I found that I now know why the steering was so stiff on this truck the last couple years. That's because the kingpins are largely seized. I got this one to move. I took off the steering tie bar. I was able to get this one to move a little bit. Took apart the top portion of the pins. So that's a problem. Pins are shot on that axle. They're great. There's less than 20,000 miles on these pins. They're nice and tight. Obviously, they're too tight. So I'm at a little bit of an impasse here, and I think here's what we're going to do. we're gonna torch these U-bolts, and we're basically gonna ditch this axle. This is just gonna get scrapped because the only value it has was the pins. Other than that, it's rustier, and it's problematic. So, bye-bye. And that way then we'll have 2 loose leaf springs. I'm gonna throw those in the back of my pickup, and next week I'll take them to my spring shop and see if they can at least sell me the rear bushings. If not, maybe press them in for me, and we'll solve that. Hopefully they don't say I need to buy new springs, because these have hardly any miles on them, and they're the 3-leaf pack that I really need to hold up that Cummins, and I don't want to buy new springs. So hopefully we can get bushings figured out one way or the other. And then in the meantime, what I'll do is we will then get that axle, to get those U-bolts torched off and drop that out. Then we'll get the springs taken out of that one, and I'll probably replace the front shackles. They're cheap. They're like 20-30 bucks a piece. So we'll probably get new front shackles and all new bolts when we put these springs back on. That way we can hang these springs back on with all fresh bushings, fresh shackles, everything back up on that frame. Then we can lift that axle, which is in much better overall shape, back up in. We'll get fresh U-bolts. We'll bolt everything back in, and then I'll order some kingpins, and we'll do kingpins, obviously long before the body goes back on. That way everything is fresh on that front end, and I'll feel a lot better about it. So we're changing how we're going about this today, but we'll get it done. So it's time to clean up all this mess of tools, because we're basically done with it now. The only tool we need is that, mostly. Well, it's amazing how much easier this frame, the components come apart. I know it looks rusty, but it's really not in the scheme of things. It's mostly rusty because GM doesn't paint their frames, or at least they didn't in this era. So I got stabilizer end links are off. Everything's free. The panhard bar is free. The shocks are gone. Bolts all back in for safekeeping. Pulled calipers, brake lines. So this axle is in the steering bar, obviously. Got both of those sitting over there. So this axle is ready to come out. You see I got jack underneath it. We're going to torch these U-bolts and get this thing out of here, and then we can worry about leaf springs. All right, so you saw the old cross member come out. I've since bolted in the steering gear box because that is a problem for this front engine mount for the Cummins. So I'm going to use this nice heavy C channel. I have to weld on a little bracket at a certain distance. That's going to be my first jog around the gearbox, and then you can see where I've got it prepped. I've got my marks, my measurements off of the old frame. I'm not going to show you that engine mount because it's really bad. I'm not proud of my fabrication or actual welding skills from back in the day 10 years ago. So we're gonna just focus on what we're doing now. But anyway, I'm gonna get this tacked in. I've got flux core 035 wire. We're not going to use any shielding gas. I need the heat that that's going to give me, and obviously a lot of this is out of position, so we need flux core. So we're going to get this piece welded in at the right distance, and then we'll get this tacked in, and then from there, then I can brace it back and give it some support. Now, this is just a 2-bolt flange on the front of the Cummins, so those are going to be, nominally like there and there. I'm not actually going to drill those holes yet. Once I get this done, I'll move to the rear mounts that are on the bell housing. I'm going to measure those off of where they were before, but I want this to be exact, and I've got a little bit of playroom up here. So what we'll do then when we go to actually set the motor in place is we'll set them in and bolt them into those rear mounts, and then we will mark this one. We'll pull the motor back out, drill these holes exactly where they need to be, and then everything will be perfect. So I'm going to get to welding, and I'll bring it back when we got a little bit of a cross member. Okay, well, there's the front engine mount. Really happy with this compared to what it was on the old truck. You can see what I ended up using was not that C channel, but I used some this is a piece of 1/4-inch winch track that I had off the semi trailer. So and obviously I did some gussets back to this front cross member. It's fully welded top and bottom where it meets the frame over here. We got a gusset there. Then here I just did a reverse box and I built that. So a piece of 3/16 bar right there. We got a 1/4-inch gusset back in front of the steering gear box. Some little, I think that's 1/8 or 3/16 angle. That's the only part I don't love, but it's where it's got to be. It's got to run at a little angle to clear the steering gear box. And then there's some 1/4, I believe that's 4-inch 1/4 plate on the bottom, and that ties back to the frame, as you can see there. So we are nice and strong. That thing's not going anywhere. It's got torsional rigidity in every direction. So now I'm getting ready to burn in the rear mounts. So this is the first one. And you can see that we are at, God, I got to measure those and make sure I cut them right. I wonder if I did them wrong. Anyway, but you can see what I'm doing. I set that, I've got the frame is leveled up. And then I set the front mount for, I'm looking for 2 degrees of driveline angle, which is a lot less than what I had before. So you can see I'm setting these plates right at 2 degrees so that they're in line with what the motor's doing. I may have actually a little more overall angle because of where these mounts sit. But I'm going basically as high as I can on the frame. Previously, they were about 2.5 inches lower on the frame, and that gave me some really severe driveline angle. This is going to force me to do some sheet metal work on the doghouse of the cab, but this is what I want. I want to get this back of the motor up as high as I can, comparatively anyway. I also did raise that front mount ever so slightly. Not a ton, but about 1.5 inches. You can see there's one of the old mounts. You can see it sits almost midway on the frame. And there's that one. That one looks a lot beefier because that one actually broke once I was already running the truck way back when. So that got redone. I dropped the trans and redid that one in the middle of winter. and an unheated barn. So that was fun. That's why it looks a lot stronger though. We're gonna build both of these a lot beefier right from the start. I've already done my grinding, and so I'm gonna do some quick measure and make sure that these are gonna be what I would need them to be. But other than that, I'm gonna get to burning these in, and I'll bring you back and show you when they're done. All right, well, it's the next day. It's a beautiful Sunday. Beautiful weather. God, I'm so happy it's spring. I'm not a winter person. God, those are some good looking engine mounts, aren't they? They are proper. Well, proper for me anyway. Nice uniform, nice and strong. Obviously I do have to do some work on the panhard bar mount. We need to get the motor in first and see. What I did on the other one was, you can see right there, I just extended and dropped it down a little bit. So we may do something along those lines, but we'll see. The motor is higher now, so we may not have to. I'm pretty sure though we still will. So I got a little bit more, now that I pulled the steering gear box, I'm gonna add a little bit of weld on the inside there, just to make sure we're sturdy. I like being welded inside and out, both sides of the piece. And the other thing I'm going to do is, believe it or not, these front core support mounts were gone on this truck, and on mine, the old truck, they're actually in really good shape. No, not real. I shouldn't say really good shape. No, nothing on this truck is in really good shape, but they are more than usable. So it's not a very exciting project, but I think I'm going to cut that out, and we'll weld them onto that frame. And then I have to remove the, I'm going to remove the clutch linkage, get that out of there, because that's the last thing I need on this. After that, this goes in the scrap pile. So we'll get the clutch linkage off, we'll get those welded on. After that, I'm really done with this frame for what I'm going to accomplish this weekend. We're waiting on front suspension, we're waiting on some rear suspension stuff, obviously. So we're done there. I've got a whole bunch of stuff to get moved and taken care of and cleaned up, because that's what I do. Got that axle to get into the scrap pile. And so the next order of business is we're gonna jump on prepping this thing, so that hopefully we can get everything changed out that we're gonna change, and get some needle scaling done so it's ready for grinding when we go to start welding. We'll get those brake calipers off there, lighten that thing up a little bit, and get old mounts and shock mounts and all that good stuff gone. I'll take that back. Shock mounts might actually stay. I think that's just, it's possible I'm going to mount them to the rear back mounts, so we'll see. We might leave them on for now. I haven't decided, but at any rate, let's get after it. All right, well, we got a little surprise. This is a 4-link kit, and also this is all from Infamous Metal. There's a little sticker for you, a little Infamous sticker. They're down in Cleburne, Texas. We were in Cleburne a couple years ago in a state park camping. Really nice area. But this be everything we ordered. Oh man, look at those. Those are stout. So that is quarter wall tubing. There's a couple of links, adjustable ends. There's the other links. Here's all of our bushings. There is our frame brackets. So frame rail will sit right there. Those will come off. Look at that welding. Beautiful welds. Look good, Lord. Puts me to shame. couple of frame brackets. There are axle plates for a 4-inch axle. Got 4 of those. Here is our panhard bar. That's cut to length. So we'll figure out what we need for that. And I'm going to guess this will be the rest. Move our bolts and the panhard bar. So yeah, there's some grade 8 hardware. There's the other end of our panhard. And there's our panhard bar brackets that will weld up as needed. Oh man, this stuff is cool. So we'll get you guys a little closer. Get you off the tripod so you can see some of this stuff. It's just beautiful, beautiful fabrication. So again, there's the frame brackets, axle brackets. So you specify when you order these, you know, for your axle size. So you can see on a 4-inch axle, those fit nice and clean. And yeah, nice heavy duty setup. I'm impressed. This was not cheap, fellas. Little chunk of change here, but I think this is definitely the right call especially for the fact that I'm selling this truck. So we're doing this truck right. I want it to hold up. I don't want to just make my money and run. This truck needs to be everything I say it's going to be, so, and done right. So this is one of the many ways we're going to get there. So, well, goodness, that was a lot of work. But we have the axle completely needle scaled, shock mounts and the old spring perches are torched off and ground clean. So it's ready to weld in. I got a little bit of time left. I think I'm going to try to, if I can get this done, try to get the pinion seal and the pinion yoke changed out and the rear cover that I've got new. I might get to pulling hubs apart. I'm not sure. That might have to wait till next weekend. But regardless, we'll get it so it's ready to fabricate rear suspension next weekend. Quite the mess I made, huh? Wowzers. Well, I got everything cleaned up. Decided to do a little yard work because you just don't get 65, 70 degree beautiful days in April, only so often. So anyway, fought it, heated the crap out of it, sprayed it, heated it, sprayed it, beat the crap out of my cheap $13 inch and 13/16 or whatever that is socket, and but we got the pinion nut off. So now I'm gonna try this crappy little 2-jaw puller, and oh yeah, walking it right off. There we go. Success. Gee, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I don't know why it was leaking. Jeez, just a whole lot of nothing left of that pinion seal. Wowzers. All right, well, that about does it for today. It's after 6 o'clock. That was the part I was worried about. I'd love to take these brakes off, but I just don't want to have the open wheel end, and if I take everything off, then I can't put wheels back on to move this thing around once the axle's in. So I'm debating, and I'm going to get a price to have this thing sandblasted. and debating on whether I do it or I have it done. But regardless, I need to have wheels on, so we'll just leave those on for the time being, and after everything's blasted and before paint, we'll break all that stuff free and yeah, go for the gold. All right, well, next weekend we'll finish the work on the axle. The hard part is all done, so now it's just a matter of getting that seal out, you know, picking that seal out, putting this new one in. We got our brand new pinion yoke, brand new nut, brand new cover. The only thing that isn't good is that that plug is the wrong size. It must be for a Dana 70 or something. But all new cover bolts, straight from Dana. So worst case, we just got to reuse that plug. No biggie. So we'll get that all done, and then we're going to put a Panhard bar kit in next weekend. I am excited, and hopefully I'll have some front axle parts where we can get that front axle bolted back in and rehung. So we are making progress. She's going to be a rolling chassis real quick, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, please remember, comment, like, subscribe. Appreciate the heck out of you guys watching. You're awesome. Take her easy. Y'all have a great week.